We're back once again with Win, a program about success in life. Dr. Al Mejia from El Toro, California with us, and he is a life counselor. For example, here's one: be an observer. Another one: do what you need to do. Are we supposed to learn these slogans and then live by them?
Yes, there's one thing. Rather than just learning them mentally and then trying to do them mentally, the person stops for a second and asks himself physically, just physically says, what do I need to do now? And it's amazing that right behind asking himself the question, there's an answer that intuitively comes up that leads the person into doing what next the person needs to do. Now, as the person begins to do that step by step, time after time, the person automatically begins to become an observer in the process. So that a person does what he needs to do, and then when that's done, does what he needs to do, and when that's done, does what he needs to do. It's an ongoing process that the person begins to process in his life, and as he does so, he's able to see the difference between where he actually is and what his thoughts would have had him do instead.
Visualization, then?
Well, you see, visualization would be from a mental standpoint. You see, you use your brain to visualize, and then you try to correspond with the visualization, which is from a mental state. All right? When you go inward and you go into the center of your being here, and you do what you need to do, it begins to happen from the inside out. From the inside out, the person begins to develop from the inside out rather than from the mental into the doing. There's two different processes there. The difficulties that most people encounter in life are due to the fact that they're following the thought process and doing what the thought process says. And they find themselves in difficulty, the wrong marriage, etc., the wrong investments, many different things. Now, when a person stops all that and begins a new routine, a new process, asks himself, what do I need to do now, and follows through by doing that, the brain will come in and say, oh, you can't do that, you've got to go here, and if you don't do this, you're going to be late for that. Or, you've got to go to the bank, you've got to go by the post office, you have all these other things to do, you can't do that. No, it's a matter of doing that, and not what the brain says, regardless. Until this process begins to bring the person into their true state. Because you see, over a period of time, they've gotten out of their true state, and they've been living in a dream state, so to speak. It's like the person has hypnotized himself with his own mind to follow through and do what his own mind tells him to do, which is totally outside of his normal sphere.
In effect, we're talking about words to live by. Where do we find these proper words? Are you talking about the Bible, the Quran, the Torah? What words are we talking about here?
Well, you see, truth has been spoken since the beginning of time. In every age and in every place on this globe, someone has always said the truth because it's always come from the same place. Now, the language might have been different. The station in life might have been different. How the people looked at things might have been different at that time, but the truth nonetheless remained the same. So people in the Christian, say in the Bible, in the Indian teachings, and say the people in Hawaii, people all over the world have said truth all the time. You see? So it's in coming back to that truth, because that's a center place from which a person can operate from, because that never varies. The truth is always the same. It never varies. It's not here one day and over there the next day. It doesn't shift around.
I've noticed that in some of my religious studies of the various religions of the world, most of them have the attitude of the golden rule in some way or another: do unto others as we would have them do unto us. Yes, and it is in there in some kind of philosophy in almost every culture.
Oh, yes. You see, the basic thing is that as a person gets centered, let's look at a symphony orchestra, for instance. You've got Tiffany drums, you have violins, you have cellos, you have oboes, you have all these varying instruments, and they each have harmony. Everything is harmonious, and it's beautiful, it's melodic, it's just beautiful. And see, life is that way once in that position.
Now, in achieving total harmony, total success, as we're talking about in life, you're talking about we must be aware, literally, of our totality, our surroundings, our being, if you will. How do we reach that point, and how do we know we're at that proper centered point?
You see, as you're in that knowing is what you are knowing. Because, see, the brain then can follow that. You see, the brain is there as an instrument, as a tool to help us achieve whatever it is that we have that gift to achieve. It goes with us and it fulfills that achievement, so it becomes materialized in the physical world, you see. And so people are able to do that, and the person does get to know that knowing that they stayed away from.
You're getting very philosophical here, almost like the sound of one hand clapping in the Oriental philosophy here. I want everyone to understand this now. Let's detail this a bit more, if you will.
All right. You see, I'll say it again. As a person becomes centered, the person then is able to see their personality or their ego, their brain, the thinking that thinks for them. They're able to see it almost as a separate person. All right? Now, as the person is centered, and they're able to separate from their thought process, and their thought process over here, call it Joe or whatever, then you can see the thought process telling you what to do and how to go about it and all the rest of it. But then you go about doing what you need to do, because then you are knowing. You see, when you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you see, when you're caught up in your thought process, you see things according to your thoughts. You hear things according to how you think you hear them. All right? When you're centered, you hear what is actually being said and not what you think someone is saying. And you see what is actually there to be seen, because you're not seeing through a thought, through a maze of thoughts, so that you end up seeing the way you think you're seeing. You see, there's a difference between the two. One can be very beguiling and very misleading. The other is always right on.
It eventually becomes a natural flow then.
Oh, absolutely.
A natural reaction.
Absolutely, you see, because as children have this to begin with, all right? And what a person is doing is coming back to being as a child as he was to begin with, and he's able to operate from that base, because then he doesn't have to leave that anymore. He can see and hear things out here, but he does not have to emotionalize them. It's in the emotionalizing that the person then gets caught up in what their thoughts are.
So you're saying people can really hear and see things before they actually happen, in effect?
Well, they can't. Some people will actually go into doing that. However, most people will see what's immediate. And you see, in taking care of the immediate now, and it's successively now, their whole life changes. And you see that our whole world changes in a sense of the word because of it.
The future of this kind of counseling, do you foresee a major revolution in our country with this old yet new thought?
There is a possibility for it. There is a possibility that that could happen. The thing is that what everyone is looking for, they're all looking for a solution. The basic thing is that the solution is already within each person. See, everyone's looking over there for a solution. The solution's not over there. The solution's within the person. And as the person begins to work on each self, then the solution becomes materialized out there, and we have a change. And it's for the better.
Have you ever dealt with, say, criminals?
Oh, I've dealt with a lot of people that have had criminal records.
They took the wrong path. They didn't realize...
They took the wrong path, yes.
The freedom to succeed properly, then.
No, you see, the basic thing is that rather than just taking a clear action, they reacted to something, and this is what created the crime. You see, they thought what they thought and then acted according to that thought, which turns out to be a reaction. When a person is centered, then they don't react, you see.
This being a program about success.
Yes.
How would you define success? In financial terms? In what kind of terms? Does it mean a special thing to you?
Well, the first success is when a person becomes the wealth that they are within themselves, because they're tapped into the source of all knowing. So the wealth comes from the inside out. Somewhere along the line it's materialized in what they end up doing on the outside. But it starts from the inside, because the person's not a fake. A person is a total person. just as they were born being to begin with. So the person becomes a total person, and they cannot but succeed because there's nothing to impede that success. So if they become wealthy, as some of them are doing, they're becoming wealthy, they're doing very well, they're living a happy, prosperous, a wonderful life, they have a good communication with others, see, and they don't have the pitfalls that they used to fall into. So you see, the success begins within the person, and then it's materialized on the outside, according to what each person needs in their lifetime. And it all corresponds one to the other. It all kind of dovetails together, where we become complements with each other. And rather than, say, talking, we have a communion with one another. And it's beautiful, because it's that oneness that exists, and there's no separation.
Freedom to Succeed, the founder. Al Mejia, I want to thank you very much for enlightening us. Sometimes confusing, but I think people can learn if they study a little more than a half an hour, I would say.
Oh, yes, it takes a little time.
Al Mejia from El Toro, California. We hope to see you again, sir.
Thank you.
Best wishes in your success in life, and good wishes in your achievement, in your own success. Thank you for watching us. Dick Spangler, I'll see you here, well, next week. We'll be back, and I hope you will too, on another program with Win.